What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for coming by and taking the time, as always, to come by and watch these videos that I put together. In today's video, I wanted to take some time to discuss, of course, we're all here to do what? Create generational wealth and escape the rat race. So wanted to take some time to go over some information I found. I had some questions that people were asking me. So I actually researched some more and put together some information really about what we can expect in 2022. So essentially 2022, what I feel like is going to happen is a lot of change is going to be coming into the space as far as regulation, and we're going to see certain trends and buzzwords being very popular. So we're going to discuss like CBDCs, which is like central bank digital currency. We're going to discuss asset tokenization. We're going to talk about the global trade finance and how that whole entire space and certain assets are going to be completely changed through the process of just digitalization, right? A lot of what we're dealing with is still in the banking and trade finance space, which is a lot of the projects that we talk about on this channel. Everything is still so slow and antiquated, and a lot of paperwork is still involved. So just with things like that going on, these systems don't talk together. So what we're going to see in 2022 is we're going to see a change over to interoperability. We're going to see, especially with standards such as ISO20022 being a big thing. We'll talk about that, what that means. Maybe if you're watching this video, you already know what that means. But if you do, or if you don't forget, smash the like button, because we're going to go over some very valuable information that you will find helpful on your crypto journey, or hopefully you'll find helpful. So let's kind of dig in, because there's a lot to go over and cover. You know, we see right here today, the crypto market cap has just overall been hanging in that low 2.2, 2.3 trillion market cap for a while now. But I have some really cool information. I pulled together some articles here. This one is what's ahead for crypto and blockchain in 2022. So there was some pretty interesting things. They just kind of just aggregated a bunch of people's different information and opinions here. You see, some of them are very interesting to think about, and it really helps because you're not going to know everything. So it helps to really surround yourself and kind of see what's going on from a lot of different perspectives. So the big key takeaway here, Ahmed El Balaghi of Bioeconomy is Ahmed is a co-founder of Bioeconomy, a developer platform that empowers blockchain developers to enable a simplified transaction and onboarding experience for their Web3 products. So he is essentially talking about MDApps and multi-chain dApps, which we talked about on this channel, Quant, and how big that multi-chain essentially is interoperability. So he's saying last year showed us that the future is multi-chain. Many dApps, which are distributed apps, are going that route, and those that aren't are still looking for ways to tap into cross-chain liquidity. So we know anything that is going to be interoperable is going to be the tokens, is going to be the companies that are going to win in the future. I'm not interested in investing in things that are not going to be up to stuff, that are not going to be regulatory compliant, that are not going to survive some of these coming changes. So we know that if the future is going to that interoperable, multi-ledger type, multiple ecosystems of value, one where also that is heavily regulated, but we have to find the ones, we have to find the technologies, we have to find the standards that are going to be what wins. So and with the ISO20022 tokens and things like that, and multi-chain apps like Quant, we know that that's what is going to be the future, because really it says currently many cross-chain operability solutions cause fragmented workflows. There is an increasing need for infrastructure that delivers a single UI for users to interact with. So this is going to allow dApps that need to move funds around in the back end to be able to do so with little to no impact on the user experience. So I'm not going to read all of them. I'll leave the link, obviously, in the description so you can go through and you can see exactly, if you wanted to read all of them. This is Donald Thibault of the H-Bar Foundation. Donald is a co-founder and chief strategy officer of the H-Bar Foundation that helps the development of the Hedera ecosystem. you're watching this channel, you probably like Hedera. He says that brands, creators, musicians, sports teams, and consumer brands all see tokens and crypto as a mechanism to better engage and grow their communities of supporters. And that's what we talk about, kind of tokenizing assets, but also experiences. So being able to tokenize different things where you may not have been able to brand those or capture that value before, that is going to be what really is the projects and the companies that I want to get behind. Like Hedera would be a great example, obviously, here with this quote. So that, we see a lot of stuff changing. Jane Thomason of KSI Holdings, she says, Jane is an entrepreneur and thought leader in technological innovation, fintech, and blockchain for social impact. So that looks like KSI Holdings is an investment company specializing in digital asset ecosystem. The growth and adoption will continue, and institutional investors will fuel the continued popularity of stablecoins, which are seen as less risky. So, we see that regulation is really going to be a big trend in 2022 and really going into 2023. I see a lot of that really impacting the space, and a lot of companies that are not going to be up to these standards of what we see they're not going to survive. They're just not going to survive. So, you see right here, Daniela Barbosa of Hyperledger Foundation, which we know Hyperledger is connected to a lot of big players. 2022, she's the executive director of that. 2022 will again be a fascinating year for enterprise blockchain. The companies that were first to adopt the technology are starting to reap real benefits, and whole industries will move aggressively to integrate DLT and related technologies into their enterprise stack. So this is going to raise the stakes for interoperability across permissioned and public blockchain, as well as legacy systems. So we see enterprise blockchain is really going to be what is pushing this interoperability and the ISO type standardization, because first of all, we want these big, huge enterprises are not going to be adopting and using technology that could potentially be outregulated, especially the kind of adoption that we're interested in that's going to be at a level that pushes more mainstream and retail adoption. They're not going to get in on something that is not going to be ahead of the curve. So we talk about assets on this channel like Quant, like Ripple, XRP, like Hedera, like Alliance Block, some other tokens that are ISO 20022, which we'll talk about here in a sec. But this is going to be the year where those types of technologies will flourish and will prosper, ones that can interoperate together. So 2022, 2023, even if we see some corrections in a bear market, I know there's several differing views and opinions on whether we are going, the 4-year cycle. Obviously, that's not the same as the past because it's already into January and we haven't really seen this alt season. But I feel like, we could, in 2022, if we do see another spike up here for this bull run and we see altcoin season, which I know we're all hoping that happens anytime now, it's likely that we may see another correction this year. And if so, the coins and the projects that come out on the other side, and one of the major catalysts of a bear market could be some kind of regulatory clampdown, so we really have to see what's going on with that. But these enterprises, they're going to be the ones that push those mainstream adoptions for things. So here we have an interesting article on finbold.com. It says Elon Musk, cryptocurrency fixes the error in money. So he's essentially saying that he suggested that historical errors characterize the current money system, an aspect cryptocurrencies are attempting to reduce. While appearing on the Lex Friedman podcast, Musk stated that errors result from the government's ability to interfere with the money supply through excessive printing, which dilutes the currency's value. So it says Musk, a crypto proponent, faulted the centralization aspect of money, noting that the government is likely to abuse its rights to determine the money supply. And so in this line, he insinuated that the decentralized nature of digital currencies might offer a solution. I think and this is his quote, I think the cryptocurrency thing is an interesting approach to reducing the error in the database. That is called money. That is contributed by governments diluting the money supply. The government effectively has editing privileges on the money database, and they use those editing privileges to make more money whenever they want. This increases the errors in the database. That is money. Furthermore, Musk believes that the current money systems run on old technology that needs an overhaul, and cryptocurrencies do offer the perfect alternative to fixing the system. And I agree. The current system we have, we just see with everything going on with inflation, with the Fed, reeling back in the amount of mortgage-backed securities and treasuries that they're buying on a monthly basis. So essentially, them pumping money into the economy is starting to slow down. With talk of, interest rates raising, there's a lot of, scary things going on. Well, maybe not scary, but potentially unknown things going on. And a lot of that stems from our money system just having a lot of flaws. And that's mainly because, the systems are old technology. They're closed off. They're siloed data. There's a lot of paperwork still. So think about all the inefficiencies that are still involved with paper. There's a lot of standards where money and asset, a lot of these large banks, it's hard to know who owns what asset. And so that's the promise of what distributed ledgers and systems like Hedera, like XRP, like Quant, like XDC, they allow these systems to interoperate together, and it's way more efficient. We could even get to the point where we can eliminate paper completely from the supply chain, which is it's just going to be way more efficient. We see in this video here, in this article, crypto is going to be very hot going into 2022, says Race Capital CEO. He says, since interest rates have been rising, crypto investors will be keeping a close watch on the market heading into 2022 in order to see how it will fare. Speaking with CNBC, general partner and founder at Race Capital, Alfred Chuang, discussed his outlook for 2022 in the cryptocurrency space. Simply looking at trading volumes for cryptocurrencies between 2020 and 2021, Chuang noted, we have witnessed trade volumes increase from around 50 billion per day to 100 billion per day, while the general Nasdaq's trading volume has remained almost the same at 200 billion during the whole year. So he's saying with the rise in Web3 participations highlighted by the increase in trading volume and with Web3's long-term viability in mind, he suggested it's reasonable to expect that the whole cryptocurrency industry will be prevalent in 2022. So I think as we've seen more participation in Web3, and Web3 is here to stay, you can only imagine all that crypto is going to be very hot going into 2022, let alone Bitcoin itself. Now, a big thing is going to be central bank digital currency. That'll be another big trend we see going into 2022. And essentially, here's a really cool tracker. You can see cbdctracker.org. You can literally see the entire overview of the central bank digital currency statuses, what's going on, which countries actually have digital currencies. You see right now the first country is Nigeria. They've actually launched their e-Naira, and also the Bahamas. The Bahamas they've launched their sand dollar. That's really the only official ones. You see here they're still researching. They have a lot of other countries. You can see here Russia, the United States. We have Project Hamilton. This is going to be a big trend in 2022, 2023. So this is a really cool resource to check out. So the systems that are tied into CBDCs, the companies, rather, the distributed ledger technologies, the DLTs that we see that are going to be connected to this are going to be the ones that win. Now, this is an article, not an article, website, from the ICC, the International Chamber of Commerce. Now, shout out to Citizen of the Future. We're actually going to go over some of, God, I had a hair in my mouth. We're going to go over some of, he actually had this really fantastic deep dive post into, and I'll leave a link to this post because it's so awesome. It will dig into essentially an overview of what this is, but I wanted to go here because creating a modern digital trade ecosystem. Now, we've talked about XDC. I am super, super bullish on XDC for 2022, 2023. Very few people understand the overall value. I mean, I feel like with as much research as I've done, I've really just scratched the tip of the iceberg. There's so much you can discover when it comes to these kind of assets that will make you very confident. But this ICC, the International Chamber of Commerce, is just really discussing how a fully digitized, you can see here, a fully digitized trade ecosystem will result in an average 84% reduction in trade costs across the G7 by 2026. And essentially, a lot of this is going to come from the average growth you see here in trade from digitalization across borders is nearly 8% above current forecast. Paperless trade facilitation could create $267 billion of additional exports compared to base forecast by 2026, but digitalizing the trade ecosystem could create as much as $6 trillion in extra exports by 2026. So essentially, the systems that we use right now, the ICC is calling on national governments to create a modern digital trade ecosystem by reforming laws to digitize trade documentation and align frameworks to the UNCITRAL model law on electronic transferable records. So what is that? That is actually the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law. So why is this important, and what does this actually mean? So essentially right now there's not a uniform standard of what's acceptable. How do we digitize paper documents? How do we take very detailed and valuable, there's a lot of different types of documentation that actually is on paper right now. So let me actually show you a shout out again to Citizen of the Future. These are all the types of, you can see here, the fields and the data and the paperwork that is all done on hand right now. And so there are calls for all of the, like, dates of order, dates of invoice, date of shipment, date of delivery, currency code and amount. These are all fields of data that you have to have paperwork for. Instructions of paying, accepting bank, invoice amount, invoice number. So global trade has a lot of different sectors and verticals. All of this, letters of credit, bills of exchange, commercial invoices, order forms, insurance policies, bills of lading, certificates of origin, all of this is on paper right now. And it's so inefficient because there's not a way to make all of this where it can just be digitized, which will allow for much faster and more efficient transactions. It will also allow a complete accounting of all assets. So money will be able to move faster. Money will be a more easily accessible commodity in the future once everything can be completely digitalized. So their calls for this is just to have what's called the MLETR. Now, this is the Model Law on Electronic Transferable Records. I wanted to take a minute to go into that because this is, you see here, a trade momentum for a digital big bang. This is going to be really, really important and impactful on the future, and especially as we march into a new age where green energy that's green and different systems that are going to be much more energy friendly. Paper-based transactions, which still dominate international trade, are a source of cost, delay, inefficiency, fraud, error, and environmental impact. The G7 gathered in London in April this year said, now it's true that the international trade has been one of the prime laggards in the journey towards digitalization despite all the galloping developments in technology. So while business clearly watching us, expecting evolutions, pilots, proofs of concepts, and other attempts made to digitize international trade, we are yet far to see a widespread adoption of any technology across businesses and across countries. So what is this about? This is essentially, it was adopted by the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law in July of 2017, but individual countries have to account for this. So this is just, it allows for a globalized standard of, you see, it's technology neutral, functional equivalent, it's robust, practical cross-border recognition. That's important. An electronic transferable record shall not be denied legal effect, validity, or enforceability on the sole ground it was issued or used abroad. Why does it need to be adopted? While most jurisdictions insist on paper-based negotiable instruments, the MLETR enables the legal use of electronic documents both domestically and internationally, typically bills of lading, bills of exchange, promissory notes, warehouse receipts, international guarantees, standby letters of credit, thus conferring the electronic records with the same attributes as paper documents. So essentially, this would bestow the capacity by law to exchange original documents through any digital channel, including SWIFT instead of courier, and fully aligned with the rules under. They notate some, I guess, codifying statutes there. So essentially, this is going to be, will this adoption be enough to get rid of off-paper base transactions and benefit from a fully digitized setup? So far, only a very few number of jurisdictions have adopted it, among which Bahrain, Singapore, Abu Dhabi. Further to impacts, many countries have now launched important initiatives to support its adoption, mainly under the ICC4 governance. So until larger adoption, trade finance digital ecosystem is doomed to rely on club deals, rule books, and other private law contracts. So what we're going to see here in this very long post, again, that I referenced from Citizen of the Future, it talks about how there are essentially there's just a gap in money. There's a gap in the ability to get money because of essentially not being able to have access to easier records. Digitalization in trade can help close the gap, but global standards and legislation required to realize this potential, while the high cost of technology adoption and lack of expertise should also be addressed. So it's important that we get to a point where this kind of stuff, where we can have it, save time, and where we don't have to worry about systems being inefficient. So I encourage you to check this out if you wanted to see more about, what the paper costs were. This is a lot of really deep research. The disadvantages of paper in the supply chain include limited visibility, leaving suppliers and retailers unaware of pickup and delivery times, inability to make real-time decisions based on evolving development in the field, increased risk of errors, driver inefficiencies, overall risk of health of industry employees. Just basically a lot of bad. I can only see a good thing. Paper costs to supply chain industry upwards of $3 billion every year, not even counting the additional price tag of paper, ink, and printing. So that doesn't really sound like a lot of information. So it's not like that's going to really, in and of itself, eliminating the paper is going to do anything. It's just, it's going to speed the whole system up. It's going to speed everything up where you don't have to wait a week for a transaction to settle. You have easier access to capital now because everything can be tokenized. Everything can be put on a system of value. So what companies are going to be thriving with something like this? Or it's going to be the ones that are ISO 20022 compliant. It's going to be the ones that are facilitating all this, like XDC. XDC, by the way, is ISO 20022 compliant. It meets all of these standards. It meets all of these standards that these different jurisdictions and different types of government agencies are going to require. Large enterprises are going to require in order to use. So for us to see this mass adoption, we're going to see ISO 200. Now, I got this. What is ISO 20022 for dummies? This is a pretty cool article. Not that you're a dummy if you're watching this, but it's just it's a really deep rabbit hole. And so just for the sake of this video, what exactly is that? The ISO 20022, if you're watching this video and you don't know what that is, chances are you may know what it is, but it's basically an emerging global standard for sending payment instructions between local, regional, and international financial institutions. So this is just a new standard put forth. It's already being adopted by the Fed. The Federal Reserve is already adopting it. They even put out a recent statement. You can see here. I think I shared this and talked about this on another another video. Federal Reserve Board announces the reserve banks will adopt a new message format for the FedWire Fund Service and invites public comment. So this was back in October, a few months ago. But this is just the ISO 20022. Think of it as just a standard way of sending data from one institution to another, from one bank to another, from one enterprise to another. It's just a way, and it's a standard protocol. So it's secure, it's fast, and it's going to allow, so a lot of these cryptos, the tokens that are ISO 20022 compliant, these are the ones we know that will be ranked. So as the SEC, as the CFTC, and any potential new regulatory body that comes into existence because of crypto, there's several proposals that would be, there's some proposals that the SEC and the CFTC jointly oversee a new agency that would be the head regulator for crypto. But all of these, ISO 20022 is going to be that pillar it's going to be that pillar standard that all other cryptos, well, quite frankly, need to be able to get up to. So, you see right here, some crypto already is, like XRP, XDC, Stellar Lumens, IOTA, Algo. Some of these we've talked about on the channel, and there's also other ones like Alliance Block we've talked about. Alliance Block is actually going to be ISO20022 compliant. You see right here, right on their website, not in the beginning, but once we connect multiple financial institutions through our protocol, we will be compliant with this norm. Quant, QNT, is ISO20022. So this is essentially, it's just going to allow, you see right here, what does it mean? Well, it's an emerging global standard for sending payment instructions between local, regional, and international financial institutions. So it defines building blocks and design patterns for the development of payment messages through a common platform, methodology, process, and repository. So it's just going to give you like standardized guidelines for how to exchange financial data between different financial institutions. So it's going to make it a lot quicker, a lot more standardized. You see here in practice, even though the international financial institutions have reached a consensus on a standard for financial transactions by means of ISO 20022, the technical development of a default mode of operation is still not concluded. Finding common ground with a single financial standard among network participants and countries with a wide range of diverse existing systems is a monumental task. So essentially, everything will be moving over. All the high-value payment systems, the HVPS, they've already been implemented in several countries that have modernized their payments. So like China, India, Switzerland, these countries, we're only going to see more and more adoption. So going into 2022, going into 2023, we're going to see a lot of these types of cryptos blow up. So ISO 20022, it's going to be the new standard. And if you're invested in any kind of asset that is not going to be compliant, well, again, not financial advice, because who really knows the future exactly, but I just look at it as I want to see where the major players are going. What are some of the macroeconomic factors affecting things? Because if we're going to put a substantial amount of investment into crypto, you want to know that it's going to survive, that you're going to be able to buy it and hold it for 3, 4, 5 years, and know that in that time frame, once that time passes, you have seen just a massive appreciation in value. So that's only going to come from getting into things that will survive long term, because the next year or two, we're going to see a lot of those 16,000 plus cryptos really, they're going to get the axe. So hopefully this video was helpful. We'll kind of wrap it at that. We can definitely go into more details, but hopefully this was helpful and helped you realize what are some of the things we need to be looking at. And if you hold some of these tokens that we've talked about, some of these companies that we're invested in, this should help make you feel even better. We don't just talk about garbage on this channel. We look at things that right now still have massive room to appreciate in value, still compared to where things will be in the future. If you're watching this video, the crypto space is still so small compared to where it will be. So understanding the right projects, understanding the right companies and the technology, even just an overview of it, is going to make you more confident in what you're holding, give you the patience, give you the ability to not react emotionally and sell something prematurely because you see short-term volatility. So that's why it's important to do these research and to be ahead of the trend of what the sheep are looking. We don't want to look at what the sheep are looking for. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you're smarter than the average sheep, which is awesome, which means don't forget to hit the like button. Leave a comment if you like this video. We'd love to hear from you. I really appreciate it. I cannot believe just this crazy amount of growth that we've already seen on this channel. I really appreciate all of you, all your comments. It really does mean a lot to me, and it motivates me to keep making these videos. So hopefully you find all of these helpful. I'm going to keep making these, and with that, this video, I will see y'all on the next one.